Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 204 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. All right, last video started getting a little bit long with what I wanted to show you with pointing on her face. So I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right in. Was working on her, pointing this area and up in here. And so I wanna go right into that and we'll cut right in and get to it. Check it out. As you start lowering this, shoot a point, shoot a point, shoot a point, you're going to start understanding where that curve of her cheek is. And I know this looks like a train wreck right now, okay? This is part of why you have to trust the process and do it right. I could get impatient right now and say, man, I don't want to look an ugly, I just want to carve a pretty face on there and put a pretty face on it. And it might be right, and it might be wrong, and it might be in the right place, and it might be in the wrong place. By going slow like this, I know at least it'll be in the right place, even if I can't make her as pretty as I want to, because I'm not that skilled at doing it. I know that the proportions and the placement will be right, and people won't be looking at it and thinking she belongs, in a funny show somewhere at the circus. Once you start getting down to these points and keep them drilled with your pencil so you can see them, you're going to start understanding where the curve of her cheek is, where the edge of her cheek is, where the bottom of her chin is, and you can work the stone back within, a short amount. There's probably just under a quarter inch, 3/16 of an inch of high stone, and then I could drill, instead of having tall honeycomb where I'm down to the down close here. Most of these points are still up by, 64th to an eighth of an inch, or a 16th to an eighth of an inch, so that I've got room to blend this off and make it look really good. But I can get close and very carefully, after I've shot some hallmark points, like this point is here and this point is here, and I know there's not going to be anything higher than those two, so this wall of my drill hole, I can go across and clear it up. This is where her mouth is going to be, but I can keep slowly working this down and filling in holes. Now, there's a spot like right here, 1, 2, 3, there's a spot right there that I could drill and fill, and put a point. I don't really need to, because I understand where that is. If it makes you feel better, if you're wanting it to be a perfect, beautiful thing while you're doing this, go ahead. But I'm just working my way down. I've got the transition of my cheek. I've got a couple of points that are back here that are approximately back where her hair meets her head. And so I know I can round this off roughly to there, and it's going to be okay. Right now I'm just working down the side of her face and going across. I'm going to go across here and get up to where I'm working on where her mouth is. And it's really tempting to clean all that off. Just take it all off, make it look great. Just for a cherry on top for your, for what you want to do. Let me set this back. The problem with doing that is that, just like, remember a few videos I showed you when I was working down here on her drapery, down on her right, along her right thigh, and I was showing you how the light was just right, so you could really see the tool marks, or you see where the lines from the chisel or the coarseness from the 9-point or any of that stuff. Once we start tuning her face and doing her face, you'll be, if you start doing granite, when you really start doing granite, you will be amazed at how much those tool marks that you can't obviously see direct how it demonstrates out in the light, how a viewer looks at it and sees it. And they don't understand that there's lines going this way and lines going this way and lines going this way, and lines that curve here that go across her chin, and they don't understand that all adds up to her expression. And that's one of the magical things about doing granite that people don't get. They do marble and they polish it and it's all perfect and it glows and they're oohing and on and everything. With stone, when I say stone, I always mean granite. Stone is granite. Everything else wants to be stone. Everything else wants to be granite, and it's not. Granite is supreme, okay? That's my opinion, and that's my platform, period. Blue granite, gray granite, there's nothing better to carve. It's my absolute end of my ruler. But people in general don't understand how much of the emotion, how much of the serenity, how much of the anger or the attitude you get out of that final tooling of the surface on granite, especially when it comes to a face. And I don't want to point this perfectly, like right to the skin and get the point right up, right, perfect on the skin. So all I have to do is just barely get it off. It isn't that I can't do it. It isn't that it's too hard to do it. I don't want to do it, because as I put this together and finish her up, I have to put all of those lines on her face in such a way that she looks the way I want her to look. She's not scared. She's not pissed off. She's not angry. You know, she's not frightened. You know, I mean, there's all these things that you're going to learn when you start carving. When you start carving faces freehand, they're going to go through 10 ethnicities as you form that face. They're going to go through a range of emotions as you carve that face. The eyebrows, the mouth, the lips, you have the mouth the wrong way, or you're going to have it puckered in a little bit, or whatever. You're going to have all these things that you go, wow, check that out. That's cool. Wow, check that out. Look at this. Now she looks like a this, or he looks like a that. And you'll see as the nose profile change, especially the nose and the eyes, the thinness or fatness of the eyes and the thickness and the structure of the nose will change ethnicities on what you're carving tremendously. And that's part of that fallacy of the stone spoke to me. Okay, it didn't. You carved it that way. It isn't that there's some guy in there that looks like he's a Native American, or that looks like he's, you know, from China, or that he looks like he's, you know, a skinny skeleton dude from, you know, America or Europe or whatever. That all these different, you know, the flat, broad, you know, we have the broad nostrils, and he looks like it's African American, you know, or you know, looks like somebody's black. That isn't the stone just magically appearing like that. All of those things are in the stone. You're the sculptor and you're the carver. You're deciding what you keep, what you achieve, what you accomplish, okay? And so having the little bit of extra material up here and waiting until everything else is put together before I really start trying to make that face fantastic, you know, eventually when I get all this on, I'll clean these all up and her face won't be to the final level. It can still go back a little bit. And then I can go in and tune it and put all the expression and all the emotion and smooth it up and make it look gorgeous. And she'll have the expression that I want, because the tooling on her face that you can't see will be there. And subconsciously, your mind you will understand it, okay? So I'm just going to keep drilling points, putting them in there, marking them off. But you know, you're the one, like I said, you've got the opposable thumbs, okay? You're in charge, okay? And as you carve this stone won't be as much of it going through a range of different ethnicities like a regular one does. But regular ones do. And you can easily have several different looks just on how you carve something. And you've got to understand that also means that if you carve it a little too much, you could ruin what you're trying to achieve, because you can't go back. And, you know, so just food for thought. All right, I've been working on her. I've got a lot more of her face structured. Now, she's still pretty big. Her eye is really big. Her nose is still probably that dot, that point is way on the end. The nostrils, the nose is still really big. Her chin ends up in these holes, so her chin's up here. The side of her face is over here, and so there's still a lot to come off. Her lips, this line on her lower lip is the edge of her her lip. You can see on here, well, if we get around the light, turn this light on. Okay, I shot lines on her lower lip, 1, 2, 3, and then lines on her upper lip. And then I shot a line below her lip. So it's without the light on, of course you can't see it, but turn the light back on. These are below her lip, this point's high. These are approximately the edge of her lower lip, and these are the edge of her top lip. So her mouth is still gonna go up a little bit. Let me hang the camera up. I wanna explain a few things as I'm working on this about what I typically do. All right. I know she looks like Squidward with that big droopy nose, but we still got a lot of material to take off this nose and a lot to tune up on her chin. Her head is going to shrink a lot. With her eye as big as it is, it makes it look funny, and this whole side is still a little low and fat because apparently what happened when I cast it is that the rubber didn't fully engage with the mother on her chin, and so part of her chin is flat. I mean, it's got a flat spot, and so the silicone must have deflected a little bit. It didn't charge as well as it could have, and so I've got that marked on here, if you can see. I've got that marked where this is circled and it says low, because this is a big flat spot. So I may just put some clay on it to make it look right, and then point to the clay, which I don't like doing. And this looked low too, but I think that had more to do with how I made it, because we got pretty good detail, and I think that had more to do with the way the clay was. But it's looking pretty good. I want to turn back over here. I want to explain how certain details are smart to do. And I don't know, this isn't a trick. See how different she looks with the light different? You can see a lot more of the contour where she looks a lot better with the light off, you know, in this case, because you can see the shape better. It isn't exaggerated by the strong light. And those are the kinds of things you've got to understand. You know, she looks funky right now. Just trust the process. It's working. It's coming really well. This is general, you know, when you're pointing, okay, everything should go just perfect. You should just be able to shoot right to the point, measure perfectly, everything, and do everything exactly right, and you never have a problem, okay? Yeah, in a perfect world, you never have a problem, but in the real world, you generally have a lot of problems with a couple of good things mixed in. Shooting these points along her lips, okay, you have to stay up a little bit, because if you shoot exactly to an edge, to a sharp edge, like there, maybe her eyelid, you know, right along the eyelid, any of that stuff, and even if you've got a really super duper sharp point, and you put it in there, you can still introduce a little bit of a stun, some fracture right there. And then when you go to tune that edge at the very end, it'll crumble, okay? So these along her lip are a little high. Okay, most of these points are a little bit high because, like I said, I want to have room to axe this and get everything into shape the way I really want it to look, and have her have the emotion on her face. Based upon the lines on her face, they will direct light, and your eye will see that. And you know, the only way to really explain that is if you go in and you axe. Say I went in and I axed her hand, and I axed everything so it was across her hand. Her hand looked really funny, and you probably wouldn't understand what it just didn't look like skin, because skin never has all those straight lines across it like corduroy. Instead, this is washed. You axe it all the different ways and smooth it all up, and there's no tool marks visible. So it looks very plump and very smooth, and it looks very different than the rest of this, where there are plenty of lines present. And so don't point hard to an edge. okay? Just in general. It's just not the right thing to do. Stay up a little bit and give yourself some room. Another point, and like I said, this is strategy stuff. This is smart carving. This isn't a trick. This isn't a gimmick. This isn't some, new hack they're going to put on the internet. Oh my God, we reinvented stone carving. No, it's not. This is just carving smart, okay? When you carve this area above the lip, what happens when you cut a mouth? And if you look at them in terms of carving, a mouth is very, very similar as far as the shape, the contours, and how it behaves when you carve as an eye. On a face, you basically got 3 mouths or 3 eyes to carve because you got the same structure where it's lower underneath, higher above, and sort of oval in the middle, whether it's flattened out or whether you've got the mouth open a little bit or puckered so that you've got a round shape. And that shape is very analogous to the shape of an eye, okay? You've got the same underneath, then the protrusion, then the feature center, and then a taller above it. And they all suffer if you lose material on the upper side. When you lose material on the upper side of the mouth, it looks like she doesn't have her dentures in. It looks like your teeth here, especially your canines, your incisors right here, right on the side, these pointy ones, if they're gone, it makes your upper mandible sunken a lot. And if you lose fleshy material above the eyes, so they look, you age it very, very quickly. When you're developing the area above the mouth, it's really wise to leave it fat, okay? And the reason for that is that with eyes, and the same kind of thing with eyes, but the reason to leave it fat is that as you're tuning those lips and trying to get with I haven't been living on the grinder, okay, while I've been flogging this and roughing this tools in, because once the tools, depending on what I'm cutting, if they're a little dull, I don't care. As long as they don't break, once they get to the point where they're going to start to break, then I'll sharpen them. But I don't sharpen them every 5 minutes. When you start doing stuff like mouths and noses and eyes, you live on that grinder and your tools just evaporate. They're gone if you're cutting stone. Marble, they last, but in stone, they don't. You have to keep really sharp tools because as you develop those lips, it's very easy to have a lip crumble and have an edge of a lip crumble. And the only way to solve that is to either sink it or move it up. And usually you'll end up compromising to a certain extent because of all the rest of your figure. You may have a better opportunity to move it instead of going straight up or straight back to go, if you went straight up or you went straight back, if you got enough stone to go up, you'd go diagonal and you'd sink it and you'd go like this up into the stone, okay? And if you're careful and you don't lose much, it doesn't, if you don't go very far, it doesn't make it very noticeable. It's easy, you sink the jaw a little bit, but you can push the neck back and you can maintain a lot of that. And you'll see a lot of times when, like Gary would take my stones when I was apprentice, all of my faces would go diagonal like this. You pick up material for the upper mandible, for the upper lip to fill this in so that it's nice and full on each side of the nostrils. Right up to the nostril, it's supposed to be full, and then it divots. Same thing with the eyes. You'd push the eyes diagonal back up like this, and it would allow him to move the brow up a little bit and get rid of any line I had, hopefully above the eye. You'd recut the eyes. So when I'm doing this, I've got some point shot above her lip, one in each nostril. In fact, I've got to mark this on here before I forget where I just shot this last point. I mean, if you want to see what I'm doing. And double check. Because I had a break there. I didn't do it immediately. go back over here. But I will leave these points high, okay? Instead of sinking them to full, it's easy to cut it off later. That way when I cut this mouth, if I have any crumble or any issue, I can still hopefully go up just a little bit, because I'm limited on what I can do with this stone because I've already committed up top. And I'll be super crazy careful doing her lips. They're still fat, so there should be no problem. I should be able to work it down and then axe them right into place with a really, really sharp chisel and really put them on there the way they need to be. But I try to leave extra material here, and I try to leave extra material on the eyes. These are above her eyebrow, just barely high. So all of this material is forward of her eye. That's going to make her look really big and very, very, very thick. And she's not. A lot of this material, you know, this will go away. You know, I'll take, you know, a 1/4 inch off down here, and then put her eyeball in the center, and it'll totally change the way this volume looks. So, but like I said, you know, with this you see her better, and with this you see it a lot better as far as the way she actually looks. She's, you know, almost you can see a vestige of her being pretty here. But you've got to be very careful with how you remove stone and where you remove it. And, you know, yes, you can point perfectly right to every point and go through very carefully. But with marble, you tend to abrade it down to that final surface. And so you have to be careful, because if you cut a point, you still got to get to the bottom of that point to resolve everything. And if there's a stun, you're stuck with it. So staying up makes a little more sense. She looks immensely better from here. You can see a lot more of her actual cheek and everything from here with the light off than exaggerated with the light on. But it's coming really well. You know, I can't wait to thin her nose down and make it look normal. Like I said, just take your time and go slow. Don't get stuck on thinking I'm going to put a pretty face on it and I'm going to sit here and adore what I've carved for, you know, I've got a lot of work left to do. And it would be stupid for me to go crazy on her face way early on it and then spend the next however many weeks second guessing myself because the way she looks in the light. Well, I could change that. Well, I could tweak that. Well, I could fix this. Now the other side's not right. Wait a minute, that wasn't what was wrong. Something else was wrong. And that's what I was talking about. You got to understand what's right and what's wrong, because you'll fix things that don't need fixing and trying to make something else look right and not understand what you're doing. And that's the getting away from it and coming back. You know, we've got to go, you know, it's Friday afternoon, we've got to go overnight away for a day or two. And what I'm looking forward to is coming back and seeing how she looks, because I will see her a lot different. Very happy with her hand. I've got to thin it up, but that's not a problem. As I thin her hand, it's going to look even better. It's going to come even more, it'll be even more delicate on her body as it thins up. And I'll be able to, you know, I'm anxious to cut this off, to fatten this forearm up because of the way this pivots around from points I shot earlier, trying to marry the model to the, you know, the two models together. And so this is going to be the challenge, to push that elbow back. I'm going to have to turn her arm a little bit so that her arm pulls back on her, as opposed to being out like this, which was more of what I had done on the clay. I'll have to pull it back like this so that there's an obvious change in direction right here. And that will happen by sinking into her body. And I may even have to push back down here on the upper part of her thigh a little bit. So, but I think that'll wrap this video up. We'll get this together, and can't wait to come see her in a couple days. Come back after I've not seen her at all and see what's next. All right, I'm back. It's been, you know, long weekend, got away, totally different stuff. Come back and look at her, and I can see things that, you know, that I like and that I don't like. I turn the light off, see if she's a lot prettier than with the light on, because the light causes enough shadow to exaggerate a lot of her features. And this is this is a lesson I wanted to point out to you. This is the danger, okay? This is staying in control. Whether it's going away for a weekend or just overnight, because you get done at 5 o'clock or 3:30 or whenever you quit, you know, and oh man, she looks great, she's awesome. You come back in the morning and she's been out drinking and she's all had a stroke, hung over, all sloppy face, and you immediately go in there and try to fix everything. Okay, don't learn when to say when, learn when to say no, whatever, you know, slogan you want to use. Understand that if I put her face on here completely right now, got everything just right, looks fantastic, there's a good chance that I won't be quite as skilled as I think I am. I'm going to come in later and I'm going to want to change something. Then I'm going to come in later and I want to change something. And before you know it, you've whittled away every opportunity you're ever going to have a nice looking job. Okay? So instead of coming in here and thinking that her nose looks too big and her eye looks too big, her eye is too big. Okay? I know that. I'm smart. I understand that. Her nose is too big. I understand that. Okay? Now's not the time to dive in and fix it. Okay? I'm going to take, and I want to continue pointing around the side of her head. I'm going to get the rest of the side of her face straightened out. And up onto her forehead. There's a really good chance I'm going to cut this back because I don't really need this. There's nothing that we're going to square up, okay? And so by sawing this back here and over here, probably over into this area, I'll go part way on her wing. Because what I really need this for is this edge. Okay, I don't really have to have all of this material here. And if we cut this back that much, that's going to lighten her head up a lot. Okay, but I'm going to work on pointing the side of her face and getting that together. I'm going to come over here and work on pointing this off and work on her chin and thin all these things up. That's going to make her nose look bigger. It's going to make her eye look bigger. It's going to make her face look more correct. Okay. And then we can address things like her nose and her eye when we address the other eye, get all these things and pull them all together. And wait until we're at a really good time to really start putting her face together. Because you'll put it together now and it is so hard to do it. Maybe you nail it. It's just, she's beautiful. But the more you stare at it, the more you're going to second guess yourself, and the more likely you are to take a little bit off, take a little bit off. Oh, God, that chip crumbled. I got to take more off. Oh, now that doesn't match. I got to take more off. Stop. Stop. Okay? Go back to what you're supposed to do. I'm going to keep pointing the side of her face and try to make this look right. Okay? Back to work. I decided to go ahead and open this up, but before I cut everything off, let me show you what I'm going to do. Okay, I got to grab something. I'll be right back. Okay, I can't get my camera up high enough to show you everything. I'm going to take my bevel square that I made, this piece of angle iron, piece of maple, okay? I'm going to set it because the problem with taking this off is I'm losing some reference material, okay? I've got a straight line here that carries across. That's no big deal. I can still pick that up and put it back on. This center line right here, this is my last perfect reference, okay? So I'm going to have to take this and use my bevel square. I'm going to make sure that it is actually square. Set it on here. Really tighten that bugger down. Now I can take my bevel square and my red pencil and I can transfer this line to the back of the stone. Okay? Put a couple, 3 marks way up here in the back. Now I've got a nice good center line. That should remain on the stone. Once I'm done. Yeah. Then I'll mark it up over the top. Now, perfect, maybe not perfect, but really nice. So you'll be surprised how often you use a big bevel square. You don't need it all the time, but boy, when you need it, you really do. So yeah, let me hold this up and I'll show you. All right. See, now I can cut this off and I'll be able to land in my hole a little bit faster because I'm not going to be chasing for it. So I'll saw this in. See, when you get up here, she doesn't look quite as scary. But this light is really dramatic, and her big nose and her big eyes really make her look weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this back, probably go over to about right here, go over to about right here, because this is outboard of where this die is. And I'm going to have to panel this down in order to have it where I want it. And then after that's all paneled and cut, then I'll have to cut the edge and sink it and finish carving this little bit of drapery on the inside with all that digging. Remember, we added as much drapery as we could to help limit some of the digging, because we got to dig a long ways down in there, buddy. That ain't going to be any fun. So we got to be careful about that edge. So, all right, I got a whole bunch of this cut off. A lot off the top of her head. You can see how it rounds her head up an awful lot. Just having the light off, switches kind of weird. So, but shot a few points on the front of her hair, just so I've got an idea where it's at. I'm going to work on wrapping. Like I said, I want to do this side of the face, but I was limited, couldn't reach. This is where you start getting in. You have to be careful, because if you're not perpendicular to the tangent, you have to understand how to approach it. So some of that over here, I'm doing it where I'm approaching, you know, the curve, whatever. Instead of coming straight on, I might be coming on like this. So I have to be sure to work from this side in and just barely relieve it so that I don't erode the underside of the needle. So this will probably wrap this video up. And so, my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculptor Studio. It's a virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.